Ryan Gresham of Gun Talk Nation podcast joins the show to talk about his mule deer hunt. And by the way, Utah just banned trail cameras. All right, hey, welcome in Gun Talk Hunt fans. I'm your host, KJ, and we are joined this week by Gun Talk Nation podcast host, Ryan Gresham, and he is going to tell us about a mule deer hunt that was of the close encounter kind.
Yep.
And also, have you heard? Utah has banned trail cameras. So we're going to get all into all of that. But first, Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by Brownells. Serious about firearms since 1939. Timney Triggers, the world's finest triggers. Hodgdon Powder, they're the gunpowder people. And Smith & Wesson. And Silencer Central, silence delivered. Ryan, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
It's good to have you in studio. It is a Friday while we're recording this, and we are sipping on a little Who Dat bourbon.
Yeah, Who Dat whiskey bourbon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charles.
Yeah.
We figured, what do you do after a hunt? You go back to the lodge, you go back to the trailer, the tent, whatever,
Yep.
and you tell stories. And usually you have a beer or
a beverage,
some sort of beverage, right?
Guns are put up. It's all safe, and that's a good thing. So there was a week and a half where you and I spent a lot that whole time apart.
Right.
And we
traveling around.
And we were on two separate hunts.
Yeah.
I would say your hunt was a little bit more exciting than mine, although I got to do some pretty cool stuff on my trip.
Yeah. You did.
So tell us where you were going, what you were doing, and why you were doing it.
So this is interesting because I got this invite from Remington Ammunition to go out to Texas on a deer hunt.
Yeah.
So I went, oh, okay, cool. Texas deer hunt. He said it was going to be West Texas. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm having this image of like all the hunts you see in Texas of like guys sitting in a box blind, looking at a feeder, and
Yep.
there's a lot of whitetail and you're waiting for the big one.
Oh, yeah.
And that was not what this turned out to be.
Well, normally you think, okay, Texas whitetail, you think small bodies, giant racks. I mean, something straight out of a restaurant.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
realistically.
But what's funny is a couple weeks later, I got more information, and he said, "Yeah, you're going to be going to Alpine, Texas, and it's a mule deer hunt." I went, "Wait,
mule deer?
A mule
Hold
deer?
it. That's where
Texas.
we insert a record scratch.
Yeah.
So yep.
Because I know that if you get way out there in West Texas, it is Western hunting.
Right.
I mean, you have antelope and mule deer and stuff like that. But anyway, it turned out to be a mule deer hunt. We went with High West Outfitters. And so this was put on by Remington Ammunition. And really the motivation behind it was to test out and demonstrate and use and cover their newest product, which is
Right.
core locked tipped.
Which we have featured on one of the shows, on one of Gun Talk's shows, which is Guns and Gear. And we've done some behind the scenes look because we went to the Remington plant, which was actually really nice for you to be able to have a little bit of experience beforehand.
Going to the Remington plant was really cool for me because I've heard about it for years. My dad, my grandpa, Lowen Oak, Arkansas, they've got, I think, 1,200 acres.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And they load everything there. I mean, they make primers there, separate from everybody else.
Please send more primers.
They make
Remington.
primers there. They make the bullets. They make the brass. The only thing they don't make is the powder. And then they, of course, load all the ammunition. Yeah. And I mean, they make the shells for shotgun shells. They make it extruded plastic.
That's unbelievable. And a little known fact that there are some employees that actually get to hunt on the property.
Yes.
On the 12, which I was
really
like,
cool.
How could I get in on that?
So
how much does a lease run on the Remington plant?
Right. It's probably like, it's really easy. You have to just have worked at Remington for 30 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Core Locked is a legendary brand. I mean, it's one of those, it's like, people don't call tissues, they call them Kleenex. I mean, like Core Locked, as far as just a deer hunting load, is killed millions of deer, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. big game, I mean, all across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, North American big game. And I mean, they term the phrase like the deadliest mushroom in the woods,
Right.
which actually that's pretty brilliant. I'll
it's
give
good
them
marketing.
credit. It's
I
great
like it.
marketing. I mean, you sold millions and millions of rounds, but you also have to look on like, well, why? There's got to be a reason why you would improve upon that. And it's not that they're getting rid of core locked.
No, they still have that.
This is an addition for exactly what you were doing in Alpine, Texas.
Yeah. So the idea would be, okay, you add a polymer tip to core locked bullets, and you guys are familiar with other types of polymer tipped bullets like an AccuBond and some stuff like that. It adds to the BC, the ballistic coefficient of the bullet. It makes it a little bit more aerodynamic. It just in general just improves the performance a little bit more. And so they brought it out in a bunch of popular calibers, although as just like anything, it's hard to find ammunition these days and find it in stock. But I actually used core lock tipped in Wyoming.
Yes,
on
you did
antelope.
On an antelope. Yeah.
And that one was in 270.
That was the first. That was for sure the first. Was it the first? Did you kill the first critter?
I think
with a core locked tipped.
Maybe I might have been. It may have been the first big game kill in ever. With core lock tipped. It definitely, I think, was the first antelope killed with core lock.
100% it was first antelope, but it might have been the first big game because that's the time that they released it.
And the short version of that story, which I think we may have told already.
Oh, we have told this.
Is antelope were running away, but then they stopped. He stopped at 266 yards. I plopped down on a rock.
The perfect rock.
That was like, it was like a bench rest rock. And made a shot. He fell over and died.
He crumpled.
It was great.
It was amazing.
So, the performance was great.
Did what it was supposed to.
So we go, okay, we're going out west, and I start looking into it. Alpine, Texas, you go meet the guides in Marfa, and you go south from there. And man, this is not what you think of, at least not what I think of. We were up at about 4,000 to 4,500 feet elevation. And we were also like 10, 15 miles from the Mexican border.
No kidding.
So we were really way out there, West Texas, but we were also way down there.
Yeah.
But we were at a higher elevation, and this is a mule deer hunt. Yeah, it got pretty cold.
I mean, it got cold. It got cold enough to where Ryan was looking at his kit and was like, "Hey, can I borrow some camo?" Well, actually, he didn't ask for it. I was like, "Oh, cool." So the guides, like a lot of these guides and guided hunts or outfitters that you might go with have a recommendation on gear to bring.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty standard stuff. Like they'll send you a list or something like that. And a lot of their list was all the KUIU stuff and everything like that. And I was like, "Oh, Ryan, I'll bring you this and I'll bring you this." And Ryan's like, "Well, I've got a lot of camo." And I'm like, "Oh, but it's not KUIU. This is what they say."
Yeah, this is what they recommend. You might as well use it.
You might as well use it.
So yeah, I did bring that. But so leading up to this, what was kind of cool is Remington said, "Look, we'll provide the ammo, so you're using the core lock tipped, but whatever gun, whatever optic you want to bring, we don't have like a partner gun company or optic company on this. So whatever you want to bring," which was great. But except now I'm like, well, what do I want to bring?
Yeah, your list just grew.
So now I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so I'm going to bring. They have it in 280 Remington. They're loading it in 280 Remington. I was like, and I actually have a gun in 280 Remington. That's a cool custom Macmillan gun that I don't get to shoot very much. Yeah. I'm going to bring that. And they're like, "Yeah, we don't actually have any boxes of 280.
But just send
available.
Me one. You just need one."
And I was like, okay. But I wanted to use, I'm left-handed or left eye dominant, so I shoot left-handed. And I wanted to use a left-handed gun.
Right.
Because I'm like, this is a real hunt. This is like, okay, free range out in the mountains, chasing muleys.
Yeah.
I don't want to compromise on that. So I was like, well, maybe I'll use a left-handed 308 I have. And I think that didn't work out for some reason. But anyway, ended up settling on the 6.5 Creedmoor Ruger American that had shot a lot I'm very tuned in with the gun.
Yeah.
It's a great gun. But I did put on a different scope because wanted to use a Bushnell. They have a lot of new things out, and I was like, well, this could be longer shots out there.
Easy.
So our buddy Matt Rice at Bushnell's like, I got you. I'll send you a scope. So he sends the Legend. It's a Bushnell Legend.
What's the magnification on that?
It's 6 power to 18 power.
Which is perfect. If you're looking,
it's a lot of magnification, and honestly,
but out west it comes in handy.
I was like, man, 6 power is the lowest. That's kind of crazy, but could be some longer shots. It had a DOA reticle, which it's a very simple reticle. I mean, it sounds like, oh, it's a DOA reticle, but it's the crosshairs followed by dots going down on your vertical, and so you plug it into the app. This is the neat part. You get the app, the Bushnell app, and you plug in the ballistic data on your load, on your gun.
Into the app.
Okay. And it's like, okay, here's what those dots mean.
Right.
So based on my load, the Core-Lokt tipped 129 grain bullet.
Man, that almost seems light for what I picture for a mule deer out west.
Well,
almost.
There's a story there.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, do tell.
So based on my load, sighted in at 100, the first dot was like 206. The next dot was like 310.
Okay.
And the next dot was like 405.
It's almost going down.
So I was like, well, that kind of worked out. Yeah. I don't have to write this down.
Right.
This is like 200, 300, 400.
Yeah.
And then
as far down as it
I'll
goes.
try to get closer if it's further.
Yeah, if it's closer, don't send them down range.
So I got it all sighted in, everything squared away. I like the setup. We get out there, we fly into El Paso, we drive 3 hours to Marfa, Texas. We meet the outfitters.
Oh and my gosh.
He's like, okay, now we need to drive to the camp. And it was like almost sundown. And he goes, just a heads up, like it's about 2 hours to the camp.
From Marfa.
Oh. I'm like,
so you were in the car for 5 hours?
How is that even possible? We start driving.
I thought we were down far enough south.
Dude, we got off paved roads onto dirt roads, and then we drove another hour and a half.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like,
that's awesome.
This is not possible that we were
That's when you know you're
in the middle of
good
nowhere.
Country. You're in good country.
It was in the middle of nowhere. Like, holy smokes.
Man. All right. So real quick, Ryan of Gun Talk Nation podcast is headed to deer camp. We're going to pick it up on the other side of this after a word from our sponsors. Hey, Hodgdon Powder Company sponsoring this one. Ryan, you know a lot about Hodgdon Powder Company. They are the oldest. They are, I would say, the biggest producer of propellants.
By far. Biggest producer of powders in the U.S.
I mean, in the U.S. So they've got innovations like black powder substitutes and anti-copper fouling agents in smokeless powders. They are the largest supplier of smokeless black powder and black powder substitute propellants. And also, something that I've been using a lot lately because I'm doing this whole like New Year reloading thing is the reloading data center. And so I've been on there cruising which loads I want, and I'm going to use a Hornady 120 grain CX bullet. It's brand new out there, but I can't wait to get on HodgdonReloading.com if you want to find out more. And Brownells. Now, they're big online, and they produce some of their own scopes and optics. You knew that, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about those.
Really? Oh, they're actually pretty sweet. I've actually been looking at them as a serious purchase for a gun that I am starting to build. But on the ammo side, and we see this all over right now, big increase in people wanting to purchase more ammo and just refill their stockpiles.
I would say that a lot of people you talk to who maybe are not the most gun enthusiasts, they're kind of a gun hobbyist or shooting, hunting. You hear from them and go, I can't find any ammo. But a lot of them have not looked online, and certainly Brownells would be one of the first places I'd go look.
Yeah, they always kind of keep it in stock. They keep it going. They keep it fresh. So if you want more ammo, head over to brownells.com/ammunition to find out more. And Silencer Central, boy, I cannot wait to start the eForms process. because the ATF rolls out their eForms process. Silencer Central makes it super easy. You can literally do this in your underwear and have a silencer show up to your door.
You could.
I mean, you could. I wouldn't shoot it that way, but you can order it that way. And with the new eForms, it takes about roughly, they're guessing somewhere between 60 and 90 days.
Fast.
Not a year.
Yeah. It's a big improvement, guys.
So if you guys have any interest in ordering a new suppressor, silencer, whatever you prefer to call it, visit silencercentral.com. Okay, now we're going to return to the story. Ryan Gresham of Gun Talk Nation podcast. And if you guys are interested at all in guns and stories about guns and cartridges and anything else, Gun Talk Nation podcast is producing some of the coolest online podcast content that I've been across.
We have fun with it. And we have some really fun, knowledgeable people on the show, and we try to find some good people to have on as guests.
And we've been up and running in the podcast for the Gun Talk Nation little over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of guests that you have on in different arenas, whether it's just talking about a single cartridge or optic or anything like that. And we've talked to the guys at Remington, and that's who you're on with this hunt. And you just launched a Gun Talk Nation podcast about this hunt.
We did, and we talked
on location.
We talked about that. So we get out there, and there are we have 4 hunters, and we've got John from Montana, John Haviland. He was shooting, I believe, a 308.
Okay.
Of course, we're all shooting the Corlock tipped. Mark Hampton was shooting a 308 handgun, HS Precision, I believe, bolt action handgun. So
really?
it's a I guess reminiscent of like the Remington XP100, something like that, but it's in 308.
Oh my god!
And
a hand cannon.
And John from Remington was shooting like a custom. I can't remember. I think he was in 6.5.
Okay.
More. But anyway, so the way they hunt the mule deer out there, because they have,
I was going to ask you how many acres.
They've got more than 1 million acres that they hunt.
Jeez.
I think on the ranch we were on, I think we had somewhere 25,000 acres that we could hunt.
Now this is owned by the same outfitter, or they do kind of they have some lease?
I know it's privately owned stuff. I'm not sure how that works, but they basically have side-by-sides, bikes, Ranger, whatever you call it.
Do it.
And they have just all these trails going all over the mountains.
Right.
And so you drive around and you're just glassing a lot. So you'd drive around, you spot something, you'd stop and look at it, or we'd find a high point to look out over a valley or something like that and glass.
So did you have kind of free range on what you wanted to shoot, or did they kind of temper your expectations? Like, we're looking for 140-inch type deer, or did they have anything like that they were doing?
They wanted a 5.5 or older year deer, 5.5, 6.5 year old deer.
Yeah.
3 of us were shooting what they would call trophy deer.
Okay.
And one guy was doing a management buck. But I mean, all of the deer they have out there are really nice size and they're like mature.
Really?
So I relied on the guide on this. It was okay, you tell me what's right and
if
what's
he tells
good.
you to shoot, you probably need to shoot.
So, and then on the management buck, it had to be 9 points or less. I think that's a Texas law, but they have to take a certain number of management bucks for their landowner tags and stuff. And so, so we get out there and I'm hunting, with the guide and John from Remington, and we're driving around in this side-by-side. We start seeing mule deer very quickly. And we saw a few bucks, a few does, and we're driving around. What's funny is we're coming up this hill and we are an hour into the hunt. And we see this buck that's like, that's a pretty good buck. And you can see the guides going,
tempting.
And this is keep in mind, this is a 4-day hunt.
Right.
We're on day 1, morning 1, hour 1 of the 4-day hunt.
Yeah.
He goes, man, that's a pretty good buck, but
it's
being that it's early, let's let's hold off for a second here.
Man,
Because let's drive around. Maybe we'll get another better look at him because he was walking away from us. He was walking straight away from us.
They all look bigger when they're walking away too.
So he was walking straight away from us up this hill. He was probably 300, 400 yards away from us. And so we're like, okay, we watch him for a little bit, then we just keep driving.
Yeah.
And probably take 15 minutes working our way around this big hill. And we come up the other side, and the guide's like, oh, that's him. There he is. And he's like, we look at him for about 10 seconds, and he goes,
It took that long.
He goes, you should shoot this deer. You need to kill this deer. So that's all I need to hear. I already decided if the guide says you need to kill that deer, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm not arguing.
Doesn't matter what day
keep in mind, for me, I shot, it was funny when we were driving around. He goes, so have you ever shot a mule deer before? I said, I do. I've shot one. And wow, that was almost 30 years ago.
No kidding.
Because I was probably, I don't know, 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm 43 now. So I was
Do
like,
the math.
Damn, that was almost 30 years ago.
But I still haven't got one. Man, I've been putting in for points in Wyoming and Colorado and another in, was it Nebraska?
Yeah.
But I just haven't got drawn out for a while. So the hunt continues for me.
So I was kind of like, I'm not going to be super choosy. If I had shot, 10 different mule deer, maybe I'd say, hey, I'm really looking for a particular type of deer or whatever. But, so anyway, he goes, you need to kill this deer. So
that's all Ryan needed to sit there and go,
all right.
Yep.
All right. So I get out with the gun and we're hunting out of these Rangers. And I'm like, well, use what I got. So I lean up over the hood of this Ranger and I get in the scope and I'm staring at him. All I can see is his head and his antlers. I cannot see his neck, his body, anything.
Those are the things you don't want to stare at.
No, I'm not. So that's all I can see. And I went, I'm going to wait until he stands up. And the guide says, he is standing up. Went, well, crap.
Pull the trigger. Go ahead.
So I'm like, so I look around and I go, okay. So I climb into the back of the Ranger, climb the wheel, climb into the back, and I lean up.
You're just getting elevation.
Oh, getting elevation to look down on him because he's kind of standing in this brush. So I'm leaning on the roof.
Oh my god!
Of this thing, and he's like, okay, he's at, I think it was 100 yards,
right?
120 yards, something like that. But at that point, when I got on the roof, now I can see his neck and up.
Oh gosh!
And I'm like,
how thick a country was this?
It was pretty thick where he was, and I didn't realize because it was so thick that I thought he was laying down. That's when I was like, I'll wait till he stands up.
Oh, he's bedded down.
No, he's not. So I'm on it and I'm staring at him and I'm like, well, I'm just going to wait to see what happens. He wasn't acting weird. He was like acting like no big deal.
Like, what's that over there?
And I'm
why is that guy looking at me through the scope?
Yeah. I assume that, these deer, cause this is private land. No one else hunts this land. And they've got all this acreage that I guess they're just not concerned about seeing hunters.
Well, mule deer, from what I know about them and from what I've experienced, mule deer aren't overly concerned.
They were not.
That
was true
not
for
their nature.
Most of the deer that we came in contact with, we were like kind of amazed. We commented on it several times of like, man, you see a deer and like, oh, he's 80 yards away, and they just look at you and walk away.
Yeah, they're like, whatever.
Yeah. So he's standing there, and then he decides to start walking. And so I'm following him. And by the way, the Bushnell, I always keep my scopes on the lowest power when I'm out going around.
Rule number one, always dial
lowest
down.
Power, but the lowest power in this scope was 6 power.
Oh gosh.
So
I forgot about that.
So he starts walking and he's kind of quartering to us.
Okay.
So he's walking not directly at us, but he is closing the distance as I'm standing on the,
he's making
on the top
your job
of this
so
Ranger.
Easy. So easy.
He's walking, just walking. Hey, he's walking.
You got any oats?
Right. I'm following him in the scope, And I'm starting to like probably if somebody had a camera on me, you probably would have seen my eyes getting wider and wider and wider. Cause I'm like,
And you're
seriously?
trying to back the scope up.
No, and there's nothing I can do. I'm like, okay. And then, so as he crosses in, keep in mind, this is probably 8:00 in the morning on the first day.
On the first day.
And as he walks, the sun is still rising. As he walks right where the sun is like shining into the scope.
Into the optic, yeah.
And
that's perfect.
Now I'm trying to cover it up. I'm trying to see him.
You should have like yelled that to him. Hey, move, buddy.
And I was like, oh, crap. Because now he's getting really pretty close. And I'm like, this is not good. He's going to freak out at some point. And he keeps walking. And as he keeps walking now, okay, we're getting out of the sun.
Yeah. You're like,
and
all right.
He never stopped walking. He wasn't running. It was just a very leisurely walk. And at 40 yards, he kind of came into this clearing because that whole time he's walking, I didn't ever have a clear shot. He was in brush.
Okay.
So I'm just following him. So I know he's going to cross this road, this little dirt road that we're on. So as he gets to that point, and at this point he's at 40 yards. So then I'm just on him, following him. I just squeeze the trigger, pop, and he takes off running, and he keels over, and he's dead. Done. 30 yards down the way.
70 yards away. Now
70 yards away, right? Yeah.
70 yards.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. There's a lot of avenues I can take with this. How much of the scope did he fill up at 6 power?
Man,
I mean, because that's a problem. Like think
at 40
about
yards, I would say I could see his whole body. Like there was space around him.
Not much.
But not a lot.
But see, that's a problem. And I think, this can be a learning lesson for guys looking at purchasing optics is know your area, know like if they get in close.
Yeah, are you going to be able to
make it work? Because that would kind of start to stress me out.
Yeah.
Because just like the suicidal goat that ran within 20 yards or 15 yards of us, I had a front shoulder, and that's all it filled the scope. That's it.
Yeah. And what was funny because going out there, we're going, all right, West Texas, mule deer, and up at elevation, a little bit elevation, 4,000, 5,000 feet elevation. We're testing out the Core-Lokt tipped. This is ballistically better.
At longer ranges.
We're going to reach out because you think of Core-Lokt in the eastern woods, and now we're like going out west. 40 yards.
40 yards. Well done. I guess they were just attracted to you.
Yeah.
I mean, because what was the longest shot on the trip?
So that is kind of funny that I think that John's shot was probably 80 to 100 yards. Obviously, deer went down.
Yeah.
The other, John Haviland, I think probably he was at under 200 yards. It was like 180 or something like that.
Yeah.
The longest shot of the whole trip was Mark, who was using the 308
handgun,
bolt handgun.
Jeez.
And he killed that deer at 250 yards with a handgun, that's
pretty impressive.
Really impressive.
I mean,
but he's done a
control,
lot. He's done a lot of handgun hunting.
Mark Hampton is a 100% professional.
The guy's a gentleman, a scholar too.
Oh, absolutely.
Such a nice guy.
Yeah. So how much meat did you end up bringing home?
Well, there's a story.
Oh, no.
There's a story there.
All right.
So I got my mule deer first one on the board.
let's just let this be known. Is the first morning that he got his, I was on a trip to FTW Ranch doing a long range course. I'm in the classroom still learning about safety.
Right.
And I get a text. Well, that didn't take long. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Well, I was like, man, drive up to FTW Ranch now. Come see me.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Well, I was going to. But there's a story. So then Mark, I guess it was either Mark or John, they were flying back, and it was John. He lives in Montana.
Yeah.
And he hunts all the time. He hunts elk, and his sons hunt elk and mule deer and all this and antelope. He says he has 3 freezers full. He's like, do you want to take this if you're going to drive back? Because after I shot that and we were talking about the logistics, I was like, I think I'm going to drive back.
He's smarter. Yeah.
And
because then you get to take everything.
they were like,
back.
yeah, just take the rental car. It was about 16, 17 hours of driving. But now it's like, you know what? This is easier though.
Oh yeah. You got a couple days.
So
to make
he's
it back.
like, why don't you take my deer? And John took half his deer. So I had a mule deer and a half in this little
my gosh.
Chevy Traverse or whatever.
Oh, it was like a little SUV.
Yeah.
Like one of those little ones.
It was like a golf cart.
Was the butt of your Traverse dragging the ground all the way back?
Probably so. But I mean, it was a cool hunt. You know, I will say this. So it was, when you do that and you do a hunt with 4 hunters on like a media event like this, and everybody's using the same stuff, you have different shots, different angles, different distances, and all the deer died.
Oh,
I mean, the shot placement was good. Corlock tipped worked. It didn't. And then that's the thing. At 40 yards is a problem for a bullet. It can be.
Right.
It can blow up. The bullet cannot do what it's supposed to do. The Corlock did what a Corlock does. I mean, that's kind of what they kept saying.
It
and
really
it made
holds
sense to
together.
Me. Yes, it has a tip on it, but it is still a Corlock bullet.
Right. Do you know the weight retention on that? It's like 96, 97% weight retention.
High. I didn't catch my bullet.
No, your bullet's just now picking up speed.
John caught his bullet and it lost a couple petals, obviously lost the tip, but he thought that it was probably pretty high. It was like 90%.
So here's the funniest thing. And you and I talk about this at nauseum, is that guys get like a new bullet or something like that, and they'll call into these companies and they'll say, well, I killed a deer like, 10 days ago and he ran 70 yards and I didn't recover the bullet and I'm not happy with the performance. But did he die?
At what point in the animal's death did the bullet fail?
Right. And that's it amazes me because we hear stories like that all the time from these guys that are like, yeah, we'll get complaints here or there, but it's mostly that's kind of the response. It's kind of like, well, did you recover your animal and did it die quickly? Yes. And
here going back to the 6.5 and the 129 grain bullet.
Yes.
The first night, this is always a fun thing when you get into camp. The very first night is we had 3 guides, and there's always a little bit of butt sniffing going on, and there's a little bit of assessment going on with.
This does happen, and I have some funny stories about this
right? Too. So there's a bit of butt sniffing going on, and it's how
serious a hunter are you?
So you hunt much, or what? So what gun are you using?
Yeah.
What ammo? What bullet? What cartridge? So
Dude,
they hunt.
Hilarious.
Those guys down there mainly hunt mule deer and aoudad. They have a lot of aoudad. We never saw an aoudad. Even the guides were like, "I'm really surprised we haven't."
Could you have shot one?
A few. No.
Oh
no. These are like.
Dang it.
You pay for these aoudad.
Oh, okay.
These are real.
These are
so.
I mean, you could have shot one.
So. We were talking, I haven't even revealed what I was shooting to these guys, but we start talking about guns and clients bringing different guns and calibers and stuff. Yeah. He goes, well, there's only one cartridge that I'm not a fan of.
6.5 Creedmoor.
And I knew you were going to say it.
I guarantee you it's 6.5 Creedmoor.
6.5 Creedmoor. And I said, let me guess. Guys show up and they're like, don't worry. I got a 6.5 Creedmoor.
Yeah.
I can shoot out to like 700 yards. He's like, not on an aoudad, you can't. Because a 6.5, the reason a 6.5 is wonderful for hunting is because it doesn't kick a lot. It outpunches its weight class in certain ways. However, it is not a Magnum. No. And because it will fly far does not mean it hits hard at those distances. Right? It is not a high velocity.
Your energy is draining.
So they have those guys, and I love outfitter stories. Those guys see more stuff than most. He's like, I've seen a lot of aoudad, and aoudad are tough. These are rams from Africa, and he's seen a lot of aoudad soak up a 6.5 Creedmoor at like 500, 600, 700 yards, and they don't care.
Yeah.
They just keep going.
Ah,
So he's like, I said, well, what do you like? He says,
300 Win Mag.
300 Win Mag.
What, man?
He
we're
goes,
right here.
you know why? It kills him dead.
Yes.
He goes, or 7 Mag.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they want, and then, an outfitter, I get it. Like a wounded animal. Now that's the animal we're chasing.
Yep,
We got to find
that's it.
We got to kill it. And it's a problem. And he runs off some place that we didn't want him to be. Now we got to go down this canyon and hike him back up or all that stuff. They want shoot the animal, kill the animal.
DRT.
Yeah.
Dead right there.
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
And it makes their job easier and their success rates go up because it's kind of a pissing contest with these guys that,
right.
hey, I haven't lost one yet this year. That's a big thing.
Then their challenge is it's definitely out of their control to some extent because
Yes.
they're only guiding. They're not pulling the trigger. They really hope the hunter is a good shooter and is using the right gear.
You hope. One would hope. We're going to jump in real quick. We're going to talk about our sponsors. Timney Triggers, new enhanced trigger feel trigger shoe for all Glocks. So no matter what Glock you've got, they've got a trigger shoe because my biggest problem was I really want one for my G43X, but it's a slimline model and they don't make a trigger for that. But now I can have the trigger shoe to have that familiar feel that I have on my 19 and my 17. So find out more. Oh, did I also mention they're easy to install?
That is true.
I can do it.
That's what Timney is known for.
So visit timneytriggers.com to learn more. And Smith & Wesson. Did you know they
I've heard of them.
have? Yeah, it's a small company.
Upstart.
Yeah, they've been around for a little bit. But
1852.
a 10 millimeter M&P M2.0.
Talking about hunting, there are more people doing hunting with 10 millimeter, and there's more ammo coming out specifically for 10 millimeter for hunting.
Yes,
that's happening.
Oh, don't reveal all the secrets on here.
I'm just saying.
But you get 4 palm swell grips with it, with that familiar M2.0 feel to it, and you get there is a new trigger in this one, the M2.0 flat face trigger. So if you like that flat face trigger, and it's just a little bit better than I guess it would be the M.1 trigger. We're just going to call out numbers now. But if this interests you or you have any interest in it, smith-wesson.com to learn more about a familiar face. Okay, so if you aren't aware, this just recently, Utah.
Oh boy!
And I'm going to get Ryan really fired up here. I'm going to get him really fired up. I'm going to turn him loose. It's basically like the wind up cars. Like I'm going to just roll you back and then just let you go, and there he goes. But Utah decided, you know what? We're going to ban all trail camera use for hunting. All of it.
They're not the first ones.
No, they're not.
Arizona did it. I can't remember. There's a couple other states that have done this.
But this is a growing trend. And let's say you don't live in Utah. You should be very concerned about this, and you should be staying on top of stuff like this because it's coming to your state.
Here's my thing with the random arbitrary hunting regs. Why? Okay, we've all agreed that I'm totally in favor of. We have wildlife biologists studying the populations, saying, okay, here is the appropriate number of this particular species in this particular region that not only can be taken but should be taken.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to kill these many. Bears, deer, antelope, wolves. Oh, he said it.
Wait,
he said it.
There are no wolves in Utah. Although I saw a video just yesterday
of wolves,
of a dead wolf confirmed in Utah.
But I'm just saying, in general, across the United States, and then they go, but we only want you to use straight wall cartridges. Oh, wait, we only want
shotguns.
We only want you to use shotguns. Oh, wait. We're going to say trail cameras. We don't want you to use trail cameras. Why? Well, it's an unfair advantage. It's a fair chase thing. Wait, whoa. We already have limits.
Oh, whoa.
You have a tag. You can kill this many, and you have to draw for it. We are only permitting whatever the number is, 6,000 mule deer to be taken in Utah this year.
So
when you hit that number, what does it matter if someone took a picture of it with a trail cam?
Yeah. No, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of uses of trail cameras that is not just big game related to. I think that's important.
That is true.
I think that's important to find out. But also, so this is all based off, the reason why they all started this was because they sent out surveys. 2 surveys.
Let's survey
The entire general public.
the general public of what they feel about trail cameras. Well, on one hand, I appreciate trying to get input from the people you serve, because you're kind of a public servant. You're working for the state in certain ways. However, do any of these people have a background as a wildlife biologist who are voting? And I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
So this survey is open to anyone, right?
Right. Anyone.
Okay.
Major metropolitan areas. Salt Lake.
Who would be likely to vote to limit and restrict your rights as a hunter?
We'll give you time to think about that.
Yeah, take a moment.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
It's the liberals.
It's anti-hunting
It's the
groups.
anti-hunting groups. It's the guys that say, no, we don't want you on the public grounds to hunt. We want that for walking trails. We want to introduce wolves. We want to introduce wolves so we can hear them howl while we walk.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, but what KJ is saying is true. That is seriously what they are saying.
That's what they
want. They
want
to introduce wolves so that we can hear them howl.
Yeah. And they will,
which is
bizarre. They will decimate populations.
I mean, hey, look, wolves are cool.
They're great.
And have them around. Just manage the population.
Yeah. Allow hunting, allow big game hunting. And trail cameras are one of the only things that sometimes helps you close in on opportunities.
Right. Well, and also, I love the fact that you will have state agencies, and I don't know what the motivation is here, but they'll say, we don't have any mountain lions here. And then all of a sudden, this is maybe 10, 15 years ago. Now we have trail cameras.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, we do. And we see some really neat things out there.
Oh, yeah. Unbelievable.
So all the trail camera companies, Spy Point and Bushnell and everybody, they'll post these really cool videos or really cool photos. But I just don't get the logic behind saying you can't use them.
I think there's a lot of folks out there that believe that it's providing that real-time feedback, and it is, and we're monitoring that movement. But just because we utilize those pictures to try to predict the outcome of our hunt, we are still hunting. Like, that deer could not show up. That cougar could not show up. I mean, it's still hunt, but it provides us a real-time look at on how we can pattern their movements to better our success. And for new hunters, this really sucks. This really sucks, because I remember starting out and I remember getting my very first trail camera and being so excited to see that, oh my gosh, I put this trail camera in the right position because I got a picture of a deer. Like, they will not
that's a good point.
feel that.
Is the trail camera is a little bit form of hunting in itself.
Absolutely.
If you go, especially, and they do have cell phone trail cameras, which are really cool, by the way. But if you, whether it's a cell phone picture that's texted to you, or it's you show up and you download the card and you're hoping there's something on there. When you capture an animal, and it could be a doe.
Yes.
And you could be like, neat.
I got one on camera.
Now you're like, okay, there's a doe. It looks like she's coming in from the north side, and she's showing up at 8 a.m.
Right.
That's just neat data.
It's
right.
Great.
And maybe you can hunt that day, maybe you can't. But it's a very slippery slope to say, well, that's too much technology. Where do we go from this? Are we agreeing as hunters, as game departments, are we agreeing to say there's such a thing as too much technology? I mean, I guess there is a point where I could maybe you could convince me. If you said, well, we're going to use dynamite. Well, maybe that's inappropriate.
We're going to use RPGs.
Like maybe there's a point where you're like, that's too far.
Okay, come on.
But if you say, yeah, game cameras, that's just too much technology being used in hunting. All right, cool. Next year it's, why do it only takes one bullet to kill one.
You can
single
only
shots.
Yep.
Why do you need that? You know what?
Everyone has to hunt with Ruger number ones.
These rifles can shoot 400, 500, 600 yards. That's too far.
No.
Straight wall cartridges, shotgun. You know,
muzzleloader,
that's too powerful. Muzzleloader. Wait, no.
muskets.
How about no scopes? Just use iron sights.
Dude.
Okay, let's use iron sights because scopes are, guys, 50 years ago, when magnified optics came onto scopes, people said that's an unfair advantage. Well, you mean hitting your target is a bad thing?
More efficiently,
being
more
accurate
effective?
Is a bad thing? So let's go back. You know what? Only bows, only archery.
What?
That's going to be
no.
That's going to be a fair. Don't get me started on the word fair. Come on,
fair chase.
like a
Ryan, go.
Yeah. Don't.
Okay, no. You can't. But you can't.
It's a deer.
You can't use a crossbow.
Yeah, crossbow. Because
that has an optic.
Has an optic. Let's go to just bows. You know what? Compound bows are so accurate, and you can shoot them to like 70 yards accurately and kill animals. No, we're gonna go to recurves.
Man, I've seen some good shots with recurves.
I'm just saying,
where's your line?
Where is the line, guys? If you agree to this, where does it go from here?
There's always one of the reasons why I look at articles like this and stuff like that on this particular stuff is because there's such good commentary in the comments.
Entertainment.
Some of the animals were heard voicing their concerns over trail cameras. They wrote in. I don't know how they wrote in, but they wrote in and said, hey, we don't want. It was an invasion of privacy.
Yes,
is what it will really. That's really what
you're taking our pictures without our permission.
Yes.
Well, something
they
kind
own
of
that permission.
There are some weird. To me, some weird language in this law. One of them is it is illegal to sell the photos that you take from a trail camera.
Is there a big market for that?
I don't even know what that's about.
Yeah. Because if I got a cool one, like let's say on a Bushnell camera, I got a cool one, I'd send it to my buddy Matt Rice and he'd be like, can I use this? Yeah, I don't care. It's a trail camera. Like, I don't care. As long as you don't share my waypoint. Like, don't do that. Please. Where's your line?
So these are the things that are happening in your states. And guys, you need to speak up about it. You need to contact your game and fish departments, your wildlife and fisheries departments, and let them know that, this is unnecessary.
Yeah. And if they're considering it, my gosh, you imagine the number of people that are, let's say the outfitters, just go the outfitters, their clientele demand like being successful, and a lot of trail cams are on those properties.
Mm-hmm.
And so now what's going to happen is now they may not be able to cover that much range. And think of the farmers too. This isn't only for use on hunting.
And
trail cameras.
And here's how they get around. They do try to carve out these little don't worry, we're going to take care of farmers. But it's like, don't give me that, okay? It's like saying, these guns are banned except for police. Like, come on, guys.
Can't happen. Shouldn't happen. Not going to happen because you guys are going to reach out. Ryan Gresham, Gun Talk Nation podcast. Go give them a listen. But you guys, Gun Talk Hunt fans, thank you so much for joining. Keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.